I just want to do a quick little introductory to this podcast. It was a really good interview with Jason, and I really wanted to keep it. So, even though the audio does have a little bit of, I don't know what the technical term is, but it sounds like an echo, I went ahead and published it so you guys could hear the content because I think it's really good. We're talking about triggers, things that set us off, how we can prevent from being triggered, and things like that. Another great conversation with Jason, who, like I've told you before, is a therapist. Thanks again for listening. Hello and welcome to Guys Dealings with Feelings. I sure appreciate you joining us. So we're going to have Jason back today, which is awesome. Reminder: Jason is first of all, he's a friend of mine. I've known him for a really long time, and second of all, he is a therapist here in Tennessee, and been doing that for 16, 17 years. So he's got a lot of experience. He shared some personal stuff with us last time, but I'm having him back in. He's hopefully going to keep joining me. I keep pegging away. I'm going to keep having him join us for special stuff. But before we get kicked off, reminder to like and share. Share it with everybody. I'm trying to reach as many guys as we can. Get the word out there. Organically is the best way. People are going to trust your word. So if you can share it, like it, let people know that you enjoyed it anywhere you're listening to it. I sure would appreciate it. Sure appreciate your time. I'm very grateful that you give us your time, and we will be as efficient with our communication as possible as to not waste any of your time. That being said, if we get to laughing, it just happens. So, all right, Jason, thanks for joining us again, brother.
Yeah, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's yeah, it's exciting, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting for me.
Yeah, it's great. So today I'd like to focus on triggers. And, we've all got things that hit us. I'll bring in some personal experience from me. So after Joel passing away, heat stroke death in a vehicle, every time I'd open the car door in the summer, here in Nashville, like you open the car door in the summer and it's a blast of fucking heat. Like it's awful. And that was like somebody punching me every time it happened.
Yeah, yeah.
And, so, that type thing, and you can't really avoid going and getting in your car in the summer, right? Like I had to get it,
Flood of memory and
all that
feeling,
shit.
and yeah,
Yeah, man, so much of that, and it just really stung. And so, when you're not in a good place already, you get a swift kick to the gut like that, and all of a
feels like
sudden,
torture.
yeah, there goes your day, right? And it just started or whatever. Maybe it's in the middle of the day, you go to lunch. So with that in mind, I kind of wanted to go into this. And I know some people who've, they've gone through a car accident, and so now they're freaked out with driving, or whatever the case may be. And I'm not talking about phobias as much as I am somebody dealing with something traumatic, and that quote unquote scarring them up to where now they're I'll let you go into detail on this, but now where they're kind of like super aware and super fight or flight all the time. And so little things turn into what we're calling triggers. So if you want to give it a little more of a formal definition, that's fine.
I mean, yeah, there are typically things that occur when a human being goes through or has a certain quality of experience, right?
Mhm.
Uh, and the way that trauma's categorized is one of those qualities is that it includes a fear of death or intense bodily injury. I mean, that's specifically related to PTSD, classification of PTSD and acute stress. Uh, and so, yeah, I mean, what essentially a way you could think about trauma is the impact on the body is that it it contributes to just a radical reorganization of the nervous system, right? And
Mhm.
you're describing hypervigilance. And so, in a really simplistic way to talk about it, is that it produces a quality of our nervous system that has it consistently being on guard, consistently aroused. And essentially, like everything in the world is a snake. And yeah, if a person has gone through particular trauma, right, a car accident or well, I don't, a battlefield moment, um, and it leaves a particular scar. So then there can be a particular association. There will be a particular association tied with the event.
A little extra, which makes it a trigger. What we're
Yeah,
calling a trigger, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
because
an association, you could say.
yeah, and that's and we're talking about on the cherry on top of what we're already dealing with, right? So we are in this state because this happened to us, and then we're already depressed, we're already anxious, but then some cherry on top is I open the car door and the heat hits me, right? And then so bam, that's like a trigger, so that now everything has gotten extra. And I'm sure that maybe you can shine some light on that. Maybe there's chemicals and shit drop there because of the fight or flight, and that gives me even more anxiety than I already had, or is that just the net
Cortisol and
cortisol?
adrenaline.
Yeah, that type
Cortisol
shit.
and
Yeah,
adrenaline would be two major things that are released.
yeah.
I mean, our
Okay.
system's going into, I mean, right, fight, flight, or
Yeah.
freeze. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And think about it. And what's being triggered are the unprocessed bits of the experience,
mm-hmm.
essentially.
Gotcha. Because this doesn't happen to me any longer, and
Yeah.
and when we get into this, I'm going. The listeners will understand how I've been able to do that, and you shedding light on it is was really cool. This happened about 5 minutes ago, and it was like, that's how that happened. So it's neat to have you to explain it. I tell people, I didn't know what I was doing when I was kind of fumbling around with my recovery, and
Yeah.
it turned out I was doing a holistic wellness approach, and um,
I wouldn't say that you were fumbling around, but I understand what you mean.
yeah, so I didn't
It
know I
felt
was
it
going
felt
through
that
a
way. I
process.
got
Yeah,
it.
I didn't
I got
know
it.
I was going through a process.
Maybe you were guided though. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah,
I'll
I,
digress.
yeah, if guided, it was by something higher than me for sure, and because I wasn't. I went through so much therapy and so much therapy, EMDR, which I'm sure is something we'll get into in a little bit, which some people who can't just get, with the natural things that we'll suggest that doesn't work. Maybe getting a little more intense, like an EMDR, may be necessary. And so I did EMDR up front, and forgive me, I call it magnetic stimulation, the electromagnetic stimulation. I don't know that the tapping thing that the psychiatrist put me on that machine, and then lots and lots of couch therapy. And I just didn't, I know I processed a lot, and I know I worked on a lot, but it was
Yeah.
like the physical piece is what really
Yeah.
kicked it all in,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. A lot of therapy will still be done. Sort of. This is overly simplistic, but shoulders up, right?
Hmm.
You could think of it that way. Uh, Sort of a shoulders up disposition approach, So
Hmm.
heavily on thinking and insight, and obviously those things are valuable.
And it's
Things,
very important.
right? But trauma is a much deeper. So when you started to do work somatically, moving into further deeper into your system, your body, right?
Mm.
That's when there started to be movement, transformation. Yeah,
Real change.
yeah, transfer. Yeah, it's real change.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
and a lot of therapy just is not because I would say when you go and it's not what I would say. It's just the reality of the situation that we're in. You're going and seeing a therapist who also was born into this world and grew up in this culture and had the complicated family systems and the disconnected society and all the shaming society. And anyway, I'm not born into the same world you and I were, and and have experienced many traumas in their life, and so they also would have a quality of disembodiment to their experience as human beings. You know,
and that gives bias.
people teach at the level that they're aware of.
Gotcha. And yeah, so in my maturation, it's I guess I learned a lot and didn't know what I was learning, and then when my body freed up enough to understand what I had learned, it was like, oh shit,
That's
that's what we were learning.
beautiful.
Oh, it's so amazing. And then you're
Think about
there.
that too, and the way you're describing insight is you're describing it as this: you engaged in some form of action that you could say created a difference in the container, and then insight emerged. Does that make
That's
sense
right.
how I'm saying that?
Yeah, say it. I wanted to say it a little clear. I think I got it, but I want you to
That you
clarify.
that you that what you needed to know, the things that you are needing to know for yourself, they came to you when your system was more relaxed.
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
They just arose. Oh wow, it just came to you like a
Yeah,
gift.
it was like a gift.
Grace.
It was an epiphany. You know, I
Grace.
call it an
That's what
epiphany.
I call it.
Grace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But insight, epiphany.
Mhm.
But my it's like the system was relaxed enough for that to be
Yeah.
accessible and available.
I got it. And I'm sure that doctors deal with that all the time. Like, I can't do surgery on this thing until the swelling goes down. I can't get in there and fix this until the swelling's gone. Inflammation's got to be done. It's too irritated. We can't work on this. You go to a physical therapist. Can't work on it. It's too irritated. We
That's
got
a
to get
really
it.
good description of what makes it of our suffering as human beings. It's essentially a inflamed quality of our experience.
Yeah. And so that I think maybe that'll help people because if you know that you're getting anxious, you're getting upset, and you can look at it as more, I'm just inflamed, and I mean in the immediate, because in guys, the work that we're talking, Jason and I are talking about, is the stuff I talk about a lot. Is, getting out there and getting after it as far as working out, my diet kicking ass, and meditating, and all these different things, breath work. It's doing all these things, staying in a routine. That's what we're talking about, the work, and that frees the system of all that's trapped and needs to kind of relieve and get the inflammation. It's ice on the inflammation, if you will, and so I don't know before I got on that tangent where I was going, but yeah. So
I had a thought. Do you mind?
all
Let
right,
me.
no, please,
So you're touching on, I think, the most, or at least it's at the top of the list of
yeah,
crucial components. Maybe the most crucial. I don't know, but
yeah,
if you any trauma informed care, it doesn't matter where you look. Who come out of the polyvagal theory, Stephen Porges or Peter Levine, somatic experiencing. All of it, the central quality of all of it is work to help turn down the volume on the nervous system. It's all, the core principle is all trying to relax our system, right? And so this presents a challenge because even though a person has had a major significant traumatic event in their life, right? Whether they know it or not,
mm-hmm,
they have had many experiences that they were unable to process, that left an impression, that left a mark, right?
mm-hmm,
That contributes to their tensions and their judgments and the way they feel about life and themselves, and then don't even know it. They live in a world that it has so many demands, and our nervous systems are so overactive anyway, all the time, right?
mm-hmm,
Overthinking, tendencies towards control, and and so the nervous system's already out of whack, right? So then you have these major traumas, and yes, it's a if you're working with somebody that's a obviously a the thing that brought them in, you know.
mm-hmm,
And but what I do is that you and what you're doing is you're working to help people recognize and understand that there are larger implications and larger difficulties that are present here, right? And that in order to deal with, in order to mitigate the effects of the most recent major event, right?
mm-hmm,
You have to do things on a daily basis that targets the load and the stress on the nervous system, right?
mm-hmm.
because consistency is what has the impact.
Mm,
You follow? So
I
I don't
do.
hope all that made sense.
No, it made total sense. I love that. That was very valuable. If one could take that and just apply it, then their lives would change drastically.
Dramatic.
Yes, and that's what I'm hoping. People hear and they'll try it and they could get some freedom because it sucks so hard living in that box. And I know a lot of people, they'll try to avoid triggers, and I'll use myself as an example again. So being somebody who doesn't drink anymore, I'll call myself a recovering alcoholic. Again, we've talked about the whole spectrum thing, but I haven't had a drink in 11 and a half years, and I can go into a bar. I'll go sit down in a bar. I can sit at a bar, and it doesn't trigger me.
Neutral.
And yeah, I don't give a shit. I don't choose to hang out there, because
Yeah.
that's not it. It's not a
If
healthy
if
environment.
life takes you there,
But if life
then
takes me there,
you're
I'm
free to
not going to not
go.
walk. Yeah, I'm not going
You're
to not
free.
walk.
You're free
Exactly.
to go.
Exactly. And
This
and
is about freedom, really, right?
it is about freedom. It's about freedom to live your life and be free to be happy. There's no way to achieve happiness, A, if we can't identify what the hell it is, and
Yeah.
B, if we're trapped in this trauma
Yeah.
box,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
lack of a better word. And
Yeah. Amen.
we're so
Amen.
inflamed we can't have it. So
Yeah.
uh
And
you know
we live in a world. I know this is going to be a little bit philosophical, but hear me out. We exist in a time and in a world that has separated the body and the mind.
mhm,
Okay, the insanity, really. And so when I work with people for years, man, one of the most difficult things to get people to do is to start engaging with their bodies. It's insanely complicated because they've been told that there's a separation, and most people live life almost like shoulders up, you know,
mhm.
or many of us do, right?
Sure.
And it's related to our traumas. We're trying to like stay out of that toxic environment, we're like up here in our heads.
Yep.
Yeah, and so oh man, I just lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that?
Well, I think you're talking about how people cannot enjoy the freedom to get about, move about.
Right, yeah, and so yeah, when you're in that state, right? Um, there are just qualities that are a part of it. When the nervous system's inflamed, there are qualities that are a part of it, and worry, tension, irritation, right?
Mhm,
Uh, a certain orientation towards control, pushing, squeezing, right?
mhm,
Yeah, it's real. I don't know about impossible, but to experience joy,
mhm.
real complicated.
Now I get all that, and going back to the opening the door and the heat hitting me in the face, when it'll still, so that it may still trigger some memories now,
Amen. But it
but
doesn't
it
have
doesn't trigger the
that pop,
emotion. It
right?
doesn't
Because
trigger the
you've
emotion,
processed,
right?
meaning you cried. Yeah, the way we release is tears. It's the healing water for our systems. So
Mhm.
and I'm proud of you,
Yeah.
and you've shed a lot of tears,
So
you
yeah,
know,
for sure.
and they're healing. The kind of tears that have that sweetness to them,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? You know what I mean? And I
No, I do.
forgot. I
I
know
do.
what I was going to say,
Okay.
and I lost my train of thought.
All right.
So because people are so separated in this world of mind body duality, I know this is a bit philosophical, but um, again, it's very difficult to get people to start to work into their body. So when people come in with trauma, there's so much energy that's trapped in there. It can be very complicated to actually start to engage in these relaxation techniques. It can be really challenging, but there are ways to work with that, right?
Force it, if you will.
Well, no, actually no, there's a window of tolerance, and actually some therapists it can cause more harm than they can do good if you're not really trauma informed, because you can't. There's a window of tolerance for a human being, and yes, and discomfort is a part of growth, but too far into the realm of discomfort, and it pushes us, I would say, further. Right?
It,
It
it
pushes us sort of backwards. Does that make sense?
it's an affirmation of what you already felt and
Yeah.
thought. So you
Yes.
just
Yep.
go further into the
Yep.
corner. I get it.
Yep. So when you have a cramp, you stretch your leg, right?
Hmm.
Okay. Well, it's very difficult for a human being to understand and to know that this paranoia or hypervigilance is related to my body and my nervous system.
Hmm.
Do you follow?
Yeah,
And so then to just know that I need to, there's a cramp,
I need to
so I
stretch.
need to stretch. I need to I need to
Mm-hmm.
relax my system. And the agitation, which includes the paranoia and the hypervigilance, can follow. I mean, obviously.
No, it is complex, but in understanding it is not. And as far as understanding that we don't have to, when our knee is already swollen up and we bump it or take a sunburn, we've gotten sunburned. Well, when somebody comes up and pats us on the back on a normal basis, we don't care. When we got a sunburn, that shit hurts. And so you take
And
that with our nervous system and the inflammation we're discussing, and you add the heat from the car, and bam, all of a sudden you might have an anxiety attack on your
yeah,
hands.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so relieving that tension,
And
man, that's so
actually, it's
that's
like,
so
and what's happening is the energy of that event, that unimaginable, unprocessable, really, like all of it. It hits, and your system, our system just can't contain it. It can't. We don't have the capacity to
mhm,
experience it and be with it,
right,
right?
right,
Not at that point in time, and so it overwhelms the system.
yeah. And it's that overwhelm, and that's such a, the overwhelming is something that I believe a lot of us have gone through trauma share, is feeling that overwhelmed feeling, and the mountain is too big to climb, and this is never going to end. These types of things, and that is overwhelming when you look at it that way. The truth is that you can change circumstances, so it will end. It's just really hard to explain to somebody who's in the depths of misery
Yeah,
that it's okay and it's gonna
right.
be all right, and that
Yeah.
that's where
Well, people, I didn't mean to step on your
that's all
toes,
right.
but people often interpret it as like some sort of personal failure, right? And the
Sure.
thing that I try to help people understand is that it's just that the systems they tried to incorporate just haven't been effective so far, you know.
Mhm.
And we exist in such a individualistic society, you know, that um, our problems in making changes and really being consistent. So we have our difficulties are typically the way that they're understood, or the way what we're told is that our problems are ours. Like it's sort of an individual. It's your individual problem. Do you understand? So like you
Mhm.
can go to the DSM. It's got all these hundreds of different of classifications of individual. You know, and the problem is we live in a system, man. We're an organism that exists within a system. You know, and that's the system has a lot of really unhealthy components to it, you know.
When
And
they're not doing what they were designed to do.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
if there's a tiger after us, it's fucking great to have the shit that it has, right? Like
yeah,
that's really valuable.
keeps
It's
us alive. Yeah,
it,
that trauma responses are they're just survival mechanisms, right?
right.
That's all they are, you know.
Hmm. It's the pri you,
But yeah, but it's brutal, you know. But I tell people all the time. So here's another thing that happens a lot. People will come in and they've had a lot of therapy, numerous diagnoses, right? And they come in, and it's the first time that they've ever even heard the word trauma when they come and they're sitting down. And so we actually start to hone in on to utilize tools that have been shown and seem to be most effective for what's being presented. But
mhm.
they've been spent years doing, well, I mean, kind of participating in things that weren't so much helpful. I'm not being critical or anything, because I think
No.
things happen in their own time, in some ways. But and so people kind of get the sense, yeah, that like I can't, nothing can change it, you know. And like I said, for I'm generally almost every day when I see people, I'm trying to help them see that They live in a system. It's not their fault. There are very
Mm-hmm.
sick components to our culture, and that's it. Doesn't mean it's all bad, but there are, and that they just may not have been walking down the right path and avenues in the past. You know what I mean? They're just
I do.
using a screwdriver
I
when
need a hammer.
they need a wrench. Like
Or a hammer when
I
they need a
think, yeah, I
screwdriver.
think that's
Yeah.
often the case.
Um, yeah, that makes total sense. And we don't have necessarily an exact path. There's nobody's laid
Yeah,
out, do this, this, and this, and it's the answer. We're all unique. But I think this goes back again to what I was sharing. So I did all that therapy. So I did all that shoulder up work, and I was in that situation. Like, this shit doesn't work. And that's what I preach really hard with people, is just keep changing. If it doesn't work, keep moving. Complete things, but keep moving. And when you keep moving, it will unlock. And like you said, it all kind of unlocked. And then the insightfulness came. And with the insightfulness, all that I had learned through all the therapy and
yeah,
anything that had been helped, it all was unlocked, and it all fell in together. It
yeah,
was like
yeah,
putting the last 10 pieces of a
yeah,
puzzle together.
yeah,
Like, oh, the whole fucking thing just came together.
yeah. Amen. But I'll say this, right? If you want your biceps to change, you don't do leg raises,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
You specifically do work to target your bicep. Same way with trauma. If a person goes and spends time with a therapist that's very heady, you follow,
Hmm.
because of their own traumas, they don't have much of a relationship with their own. So you can spend quite a bit of time floundering around in that space, and maybe it's still helpful because you're developing in a relationship. So like that, I'm not meaning it's not
Right, right, right.
unhelpful, but it's not maybe helpful in the way that specifically targeting biceps could be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's really cool about what's been learned here recently, with so much more emphasis being put on trauma, and us understanding how we are pretty much all traumatized, whether we acknowledge it or not, just by having like you say, the organisms that we are in the system that we live in.
Yeah,
And that's very it's very enlightening to hear that. And I think if people can understand that they're just it's okay, it's not your fault how you got there. It's not my what happened, is it's
but
nobody's
I'm
fault.
responsible.
But yeah, I've got still got to take care of me and what I got to do with my body about it. It's just like if your knee swelled up and you just said, "Oh, well, I'm not going to deal with it because my knee shouldn't have gotten messed up playing pickleball, so I'm just not going to deal with it." Well, nobody would do that. And
Right.
it's our society that's allowed that to happen. And if you can acknowledge that in yourself and be like, look, this isn't even me saying I don't want to do it. It's my society, or whatever the stigma or whatever the external pressure is that's been put on. And
Yeah.
fuck that. Take control. It's your life. You do you, and you go take care of yourself. And
Yeah, man. Yeah.
we've
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah. I
spent
mean,
time on that.
right, and it means moving into areas maybe as men. Often, I'm specifically speaking about men that we're not used to moving into. I
Uncomfortable.
think many men that are listening to this conversation right now would maybe they might have the experience of being in a time in their life and in a relationship where they're being asked to be more emotionally intelligent, emotionally attuned, emotionally communicative, right? Aware,
Mm-hmm.
present, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trauma is lack of presence. Recovery is presence.
Oh, I love it.
That's what it is, right? And so, uh, yeah, and man, it's available to all of us. I would say we just have to know uh, maybe the best paths to walk, the best tools to use.
The mind, having an open mind, for lack of a better word, the
Yeah,
willingness, and I define that as the willingness to be wrong.
yeah. Amen.
Um,
To not know, and
yeah,
I'll lose my train of thought here and there, but I think I was making a broader point there. But so what you and I are talking about is very. I think you could even almost consider it as like feminine qualities, understanding our emotions,
yeah,
understanding those qualities of our life. And I bet many of the men that might be listening to this are being challenged to do that in their life. And that's the healing of trauma, of moving into really work with our life and our experiences, what's going on. It's how we move into the spaces we're being asked to move into, right? Do you know what I'm saying?
I
So
I do.
I think any sort of, yeah, it's any kind of machismo, it's antiquated. Like it's that time is over. We're in a new relational dynamic between each other, between men and women. And our traumas are directly responsible and directly related to our interpersonal complications,
Hmm. Yeah,
our
that's
relational
w-
complications. I might
yeah.
have gone
We
on a
well, no, you did, but what you did touch on there, and that's kind of the selling point. I feel like for men is how we're not able to be a good dad or husband. That's really what kicks us in the ass to get something done. We won't do it for ourselves, right? We won't do it because we just don't, we're not happy. We'll plug through that. We've been trained to do that. We'll just keep putting our head down. But when we can see we're affecting our son, little Johnny, or, little Susie, or we come home and wife is like, I'm fucking over it. And our whole family, our family's going to fall apart, whatever. Like somebody we love, we're losing because we're not taking care of ourselves. I wish it was that we love ourselves enough. We're going to take care of ourselves. But often it takes that external pressure of knowing we're hurting somebody we love. And if that's what it takes, then great. I hope you get your help. I just want you to do something to make a change, because you can't, put the mask on yourself before you put the mask on your child, because you can't put the mask on the child if you're dead. So, referencing when you're in an airplane, like you've got to put the mask on yourself first. You've got to take care of you first, become the best you, then you can be the best in or whatever, because you are. And oh, side note, you're living your best fucking life now. Like,
right.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
happy. And so I don't know. Well, this has been a great conversation. I feel like we could probably go on about triggers, because uh, it really became hot to say, I'm getting triggered by this, and you're going to trigger this, and this is going to trigger that. And yeah, I think what we've learned today is when you're inflamed, there's going to be a lot of triggers. When your knee is swollen up, you've really got to
They'll
watch
be
out not to
everywhere,
bump it. Yeah,
everywhere,
there's snakes everywhere.
everywhere.
And it's a
And
good analogy.
it will be, I know, just really quick, and it will show up in ways that people might not even associate.
Correlate.
So if
Hmm.
you move through life and you're always irritable and irritated and judgmental and critical, and uh, it's likely related to your trauma. It's
Yeah.
not really the world in the way that you think it is. It's that you're inflamed.
Yeah. That's, oh, that's awesome. Because yeah, so many times it's not as obvious as opening the car door, right?
No, it is not.
And that makes it extra difficult. And so we're already the stigma to not deal with it. I don't know how to deal with it. Where do I even fucking start? And then it's showing up. We bumped our knee and it's showing up in our toe. Our toe's
Yep.
swollen.
Amen.
Okay, wow.
It's mysterious.
So insightful, man. Again, very appreciative to have you. That was a great conversation, and I think that's going to be extremely helpful. Y'all listening
I
out there,
hope so.
please like this. If you want to leave a comment, that'd be great. We'll get back to you if I can. Thank you for your time. Grateful to have you with us. And again, like us on Instagram, ITU Thrive. Come to the website, itu.com. You can find us on YouTube and Spotify, Apple as well. Thanks, and I hope you have a great day.